kind of works into making the work a priority, getting leadership to move things forward. And again, this is like who should be on this team? How do we create meaningful reports and make everybody sure that that they understand how this overlaps with the work that they are doing. The more that we can provide those kind of holistic maps in people's heads of like, this is how this all works together, that's really important because it also honors the work that people have done in the past, and we want to, I don't know, I think that that's been a big contention when I go into districts is like, well, this has been my initiative over here, and what are you doing trying to come in and take it over or something like that? It's like really a lot of these things can play nicely together and actually strengthen each other when we use them. So again, if the early warning system actually has that predictive analytics built into it, then that's going to be a stronger screener than, let's say, just having a number from RTI or PBIS or something. Solution, recommendation about finding a sponsor for the project. That might be for superintendent or also even states. And then we also want to discuss just the timeline of how long this actually, because that's another question that comes up, is that how long is an appropriate timeline? How long is this going to take us to get off the ground? And so we're kind of playing around with this one still, where it's like, maybe it's a 6-month to build consensus. I think that building consensus piece at the very beginning as we're building the data systems and reports is really important. But yeah, so making sure that you can build consensus, maybe that takes 6 months, and then being able to pilot it in for 3 months and then actually rolling it out. But that seems really ambitious to me based on what I've seen in the past, but that could be ideal. I don't know, what do you guys think about how long this might take, both at a district level and then also at a state level? And that's the last that I have, so. All right, everybody's okay with that?
Is that to begin building or just like this?
Yeah, so the initial would be like when we're building up the consensus around what's going to be, making sure that all of those people are in the room, that we're having these conversations. That can take a really long time to figure out. So that's what some of our folks have been saying is like 6 months to build out that consensus across this would be across the state.
So we have an idea to do this because of the whole system challenge, that we think we should go to the Gates Foundation. They should build this system and give it to the districts free, and then the districts just have to hire a data person. And so integrate all these workflows, all these other sorts of things into that. So you actually have the big picture and can drill down and slice and dice in lots of different ways. And by golly, that would make a really big impact. So, Bob, that's on you. And we're happy to write letters of support whenever you need them. I mean, what the hell? I mean, Gates is worth $3 billion or something.
I agree with that. If they need help, we can help them with that.
They say money's not an issue, but it is an issue.
I mean, I think this is Carla. Hi, Sarah. That I think that this is all. I mean, I'm trying to get my thoughts on this. In a district that has struggled for years with trying to stand up a dashboard that pulls data from our student information system and has the reports, and we actually have pretty decent reports relative to some areas, but then for it to be adaptive enough where you have the IT power to then say, oh no, that's not our threshold, this is our threshold, and then for it to interface with our data warehouse so that we can be adaptive in our dashboard reports. And we're a decent sized district. Smaller districts are like, they have 2 people doing anything that has the word technology in it. or data in it. And then the whole issue of, okay, once you see the reports, the whole issue of how are you tracking your actions relative to the data, and how do you know if your actions have an impact? And Sarah, we've talked about this ad nauseum. So, we are still confounded with that issue as a district. And so I want to echo in all seriousness that if there were some technological guidelines or frameworks for how this could exist, and then there were some big funders who said, we're going to come together a little bit like when Mott, Gates, and who's that? Part of the funders group, right? And they all came together around a pretty big initiative. And so having a funders group around this work say, we understand the technology challenges in actually being able to know if what you're doing has an impact on kids. And I think that it is, we have, in our state, we have Synergy, which is run by EduPoint, that how they interface with EdFi, and I'm sure there's a gazillion other student information systems out there. And then has that interface with the college. It is a huge, complex system, and it takes a gigantic amount of money to actually get it up and running. So the recommendations are great, but I still am like, I don't want to make it so big that it's undoable, but I feel like in every place where I talk about this work, it always comes back to about how are we tracking our interventions so we know it's effective. And and then the room is silent.
Yeah.
Or we say we have spreadsheets.
Right.
I would
Yeah.
say there are other pieces that seem to me, having worked with a lot of states and districts and schools, are almost as equally important as the technology. I mean, technology is one set of things. I personally think, for the most part, when you don't have lots of programmers on the staff, that going to vendors who after 10 years are figuring out, this is just my personal thought. But then, once you've got the technology, you've got to get the data collected and inputted.
Right.
That's a whole separate issue that needs training, and it needs constant training, and it needs protocol. People turn over. Okay, then the data's in the system. You've got to get reports out. Reporting, whether it's interventions or whatever it is, just getting a report out is the next challenge. Then getting people who can read that report and understand that report. That's maybe the biggest piece to me when we talk about rollout and piloting, is convincing everybody, those English teachers, social studies teachers who don't like looking at data, that they can understand patterns in data. And then you get the team process, or maybe somewhere in there you've got the team process, and you've got the decision about interventions, putting interventions, actions into place, and then tracking them. So it is about a 10-step process, each of which takes training, monitoring of the training, and the turnover of personnel, retraining. So it's a really complicated challenge in front of us, many components.
Yes.
So maybe to.
That's why it would be so nice if we were, because there's all this like commercial development around data literacy and all of the things that you just mentioned, Joanna. That's why we were able to give districts like, okay, here is the tool that you use. Even if it's going through like a vendor, that they can communicate with the vendor even, I think that that's a big piece. Is, yeah, at least empowering people to be able to say, this is what we need to have an effective system. Maybe we spread it out over several years of like, okay, here's this piece of the system, and then next year we take this piece of the system or something like that. But at least having some kind of blueprint that we can give people to like, all right, these are definitely the things that you would need in your system. I think that whether they're working internally or with a vendor, that those are important things that we need to empower people to be able to communicate about.
So I'm willing to be the odd one out. I worry about one answer and a national, the Common Core still reverberates in my head. I just think thinking about some innovation, some reiteration at different places and different communities, because at the end of the day, I think it's not a technology issue as much as Joanna's saying, it's a people issue, and something coming in from a national, here's the answer, been there, done that.
So, yeah. So I work at the Gates Foundation.
I'm gonna have a
The answer is yes.
Okay. So I would be interested in having like a serious conversation about what you think the needs are, what you think the possibilities are, and how, you know, what could address them. I think in general we have like a very poor track record of trying to find the one solution to a technology problem that gets sustained and then has a mechanism for getting updated as needed. And so, but like I think, you know, we are definitely interested in trying to be a part of helping to solve some of these issues. And I think like having a conversation about what you think would be possible and what you think would be useful would be really valuable. Like my gut reaction is not like wanting to back away from, you know, that, you know, us funding that one solution, but there are a bunch of other funders interested in supporting data use, and I think like, you know, whether or not that ends up with funding, you know, what you have in mind, like I think there could be a lot of value in that discussion.
Thank you very much.
In Georgia, we withstood, we needed more than probably a lot of states the Common Core effort, and we withstood the backlash that came from that. And so I hear that, and we really would need to make it a non-federal type of issue, federal versus national. But there, I mean, we have some really good working relationships with SRED, and bringing a regional approach to something like this, and then having the regions work together so that there was a common framework, to me seems to be one way to do it. And then I think that your point is building in on the front end that here's the technology, but Gates and other funders are not going to support this over for an extended period of time, that it has to be sustainable within the context of either the state work or big district work, that type of thing. Because I think, you know, the lessons learned is that if the federal government sends out money, the program works really well until the government cuts off funding, you know. And unfunded mandates are never, ever going to take root in a way that's going to be impactful for the nation. So I think we've really got to work on creating that balance. And then a regional, I can see in Georgia, SRED being the umbrella, and then we have our regional education service agencies within Georgia that we've driven out our PBIS work really well. So it's helped the small districts, and the big districts have gotten technical support. So I think there are ways to do it. We just need to be very intentional. And how, to your point, is how we build it out so that it, you know, doesn't feel like it's coming from Congress or US DOE as a mandate.
I think everything I've heard around the country is not just the South, but don't tread on me, basically. Stay away.
And I say that from the South because I think that we've still got some of the largest gaps to overcome, so that if we can be a guinea pig in this work, we end up being helped in ways far deeper than some of the other parts of the country.
Well, I know that was kind of, that local control piece is really, really important, and like that's huge out here in the West as well. Like, it's the Wild West of Montana and all these other district or states that we work with out here. And I mean, that we do want to make sure that we're valuing the local control of what people are already doing, and so it's more of like, what is the blueprint of things that should be involved in these kind to make those types of decisions. So like, there's some definite decision points, and I think that's something that I'm still wrestling with a little bit, is like, I feel like you could attack this from a couple of different ways on some of these points that we've talked about. And so at least being able to provide a blueprint of like, okay, you could do this, or you could do here, or you could do this, and then here's some of like the benefits and costs associated with each one of those, so that people are at least making an informed decision.
Bridget, one last.
Yep, I think I'm just kind of underscoring what everybody else has said, but I think we have to be really careful that we're asking people to apply their energy in the right places that are really going to return something of value and of impact. And so, Joanna, you did such a great job. I was getting tired just kind of listening to you, outline the 10-step process. And I say that for two reasons. One, thinking again from a relatively rural state and knowing the capacity or the lack of capacity in so many of our school districts. And knowing that some schools are doing this literally on a board in a room that is their meeting room, and they're tracking kids with colored push pins and things. And they're getting real impact. So I would caution us in driving our energy into a system for that reason, but also because my sense is there, in kind of 30 years plus of reform now, there is just a general feeling of fatigue across the board, in states and nationally, and we've got to find some way with all the different things that are going on, ESSA, you name it, of cutting through that fatigue and getting to impact.
And I think that's really important as well, and the more that we can show where there's overlaps, like what you guys are already doing within the school, I think that's where we've seen a lot of progress, is like where districts have been really good about like aligning all of that effort, so that we are saying, okay, we know that you've been doing this, and we know that you've been doing that, and this is how this kind of ties this together, or this is how it's just a little bit like we're complementing what the other things that we're doing.
Well, if there are no more questions, no more discussion, I think we should all give Sarah a big hand of applause.
And Sarah, we're going to send you some vitamin C.
Thanks. Well, hopefully I'm on the other side of it at this point, but thank you guys for your patience.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right, bye guys.
We did not have a break scheduled, but it seems to me that people would informally like to take a short break. We're near enough to the end of the meeting that you'll take 5 minutes, not 15.
Penny, we haven't had any time to catch up.